Hey everybody, I'm sitting here with Mr. Electricity, Steve Regal. If you are a patron of Booking the Territory, you'll get this early. If you're not a patron, don't worry. You're hearing this just a couple of weeks or a week or two later. Who knows? Depends on when I get the full show up. But Mr. Regal, Mr. Electricity, I should say, Steve Regal. How you doing? You doing all right today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I'm 67 years old. I'm retired, and Mr. Electricity's gone from about 440 volts to maybe 220.
Can't beat that. Well, I'm taking it the night
Yeah.
of September 27th, I think it was, 1985, with you and Jimmy Garvin battling the Road Warriors. You were definitely above 440 volts of electricity. Would that be a safe bet?
Oh, that would definitely be a safe bet. I had to be 1,000 volts for that one. Them boys were tough.
You know, it's one of the funniest things. So I didn't grow up in the AWA territory, so or grow up watching that. I grew up watching Mid South. So it was not until actually, you won't believe this, probably about a year ago, that I first stumbled upon the footage of that night on YouTube. And I really wanted to ask you about that because it's new to me, even though it was over 33 years ago at this
Yeah.
point. It's
Yeah,
still new.
a lifetime ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's still new to me, but so I don't know. I kind of wanted to ask you, to talk about that night. When did you find out you and your tag team partner Jimmy Garvin were going to win the belts? I mean, like, was it way ahead of time, or did you just show up that night? And talk about that night and everything that happened.
Okay, all right. The Road Warriors, as you well know, are phenomenal. Were phenomenal athletes. God bless him, Hawk. He's dead. God rest his soul. And Joe Laurinaitis was a great guy. They're both great guys, but they didn't want to sell for anybody anything because they were the Road Warriors, and that was their gimmick, and it was hard to have a match with them because of that. And they knew, to be honest with you, the only way we could have switched the belts is because they liked Jimmy and I. If they didn't like us, they wouldn't have done it. You know what I'm saying? And promotion felt that the belts in our hands would be easier to switch back and forth with us because we were businessmen. Jimmy and I, God bless him, we didn't care what the finish was or who was doing what. What are you paying me? That's the bottom line. We worked for the money, and and being on top of the Warriors, let me tell you, we cashed a lot of money in with those guys, and my hat's off to them because we drew some big, big, big houses, and back then we were still getting paid off of the live gate. It wasn't so much TV revenue,
Yeah, different world definitely at that time. So when was it how far in advance was it decided that you guys would defeat them for the belts that night?
Well, I'm sure Vern and Greg and the powers that be that were booking the territory. Greg was mainly the key of it. And of course, Vern had the final say, but they decided to do that. And of course, they told us, a week before the play what they were planning and asked us if we would be willing to do it. And we said, well, hell yeah, we'll do whatever you want. Just pay us.
It's all about the money.
We don't
right?
care what you want. We'll do it. It's all about the money, especially back then.
Yeah, all about the money. It was I remember when the footage was when I stumbled upon it. I actually had a listener who sent it to me. A guy named Dan. He sent it to me, and he said, "Here's the footage we're talking about when Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal defeated the Road Warriors." So I went back and I looked at it. In the first footage I saw, you really can't see what happens. All you see is Jimmy pinning Animal in the ring, but you can't see. So me and a couple of my co-hosts, Doc and Harper, we were talking about it. We were saying, what did they do? Did they shoot them? Because they were the Road Warriors. I mean, in our eyes, nothing could bring them down. And then I think it was a couple weeks later, I saw another angle of the footage where Hayes came off the top rope, hits Jimmy, and Jimmy, falls on the Animal and gets the pin. Animal, it was a 3 count. Animal was up right away, but like you said, there was no way you all were going to win without some, interference in the match, right?
Absolutely, and we knew that. And the Freebirds, God bless them, they were businessmen too. Michael Hayes, one of the best there ever was. Terry Gordy, God rest his soul, also a great showman, and Buddy Roberts. He's one of the best old-time workers there ever was in the business.
Yeah, I loved him in the Freebirds. I grew up watching not just Mid-South, but World Class as well, and it was definitely enjoyable watching the Freebirds and Buddy Roberts, Michael Hayes, and Terry Gordy do their thing back then. Definitely some outstanding stuff.
It was so much fun working with them too, because they were businessmen. Let's do what we can do to make some money and tear this house down. And that's what we did.
I hear that. Well, good deal. So I had a question. So not long Yeah. How long did y'all didn't have the belts for long, did you? In the AWA?
We had them for probably about 6 months to a year. I think maybe a year at the most. But you got to remember what was going on at that time when Jimmy's in my mind. Vern was going. He was getting. Didn't know it at the time, but he was going to be a dinosaur and be back to the relic of the dinosaur age. And we didn't want to change with the times. He tried to change a little bit. You know, we were on ESPN at the time, and he was trying to jazz the thing up. But they all made a mistake. They tried to compete with Vince instead of just keeping what they had. They all tried to go out and compete with Vince. Well, you couldn't compete with Vince. He had buku. He had billions of dollars to spend to get where he wanted to go, and he was taking over the business, and they just couldn't realize it. Well, Jimmy and I saw that at the outset and said, hey, take this run while we can, because this is the last run of money for us. Because, I was 35. I was getting ready to get out of the business anyway, because at age 35 in any professional sport, somebody should be thinking about, wrapping it up for their career. These guys that go in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, come on, man. I mean, shit, that's unheard of in pro basketball, pro football, or whatever. If you get close to age 40, unless you're a Tom Brady or a phenomenal in shape guy, it's time to, buckle down your career. Well, it got handed to, I wanted it to last a couple, 3 more years, but I saw the handwriting on the wall, and I had some top matches on my last 6 months to a year there, and it just panned out to where, we could make as much money as we can, because I knew it was going to be over. I didn't want to go to work for Vince. I did eventually for a few months just to make a bankroll, because he paid very well. And then I worked for Vince, and that was it. I went home in 87, last of 87, 88, and parked it at home, bought a home, and started raising my family, got a job with General Motors, and then went in the real world again,
There you go. It's amazing because you and Jimmy seem to make the transition. I don't want to. I guess I can use the world civilian life after wrestling. A lot of guys, I guess, struggle with doing that, but you guys, he's a pilot, and like you said, you started working for GM, and you guys just went into that world of I guess the working world, so to say, not the wrestling world, and transitioned pretty seamlessly.
And exactly, I planned that from the get-go. I said, when this is done, I want to do X amount. I want to make X amount of money. I want to save X amount of money. And when I get done with wrestling, I can say, well, I got me a nice house. I got a little bit of money in the bank, and I'm not crippled. And I got to accomplish that. So I was luckier than most. God Almighty, there's probably 100 guys that have died in the last 10 years that were good friends of mine that, it's just that type of business. And there's no pension. There's no health insurance. There's no, I guess now they do have contracts for a year and all that. But ours was just word of mouth. Vernon say, hey, I'm going to make you $6,000 a week. I said, okay, that's fine with me. Let's rock. I mean, that's
Right.
just how it was.
Yeah. Let me ask this. So when you guys had the belts for a little while, you were in AWA. Did you go to World Class first before Jim Crockett Promotions? Is that the time? Do I have the timeline right?
You're exactly right. I went from Vern to World Class down in Texas, and did their light heavyweight thing with their Texas State heavyweight champion. Had matches there. I forget the kid's name I worked with, but very good worker.
Diaz.
And we brought the house down with that. And of course, I teamed up with John Tatum, who was down there at the time, and I had a good run. They paid well, and I just went wherever I could make the most amount of money for the least amount of time. And so I went from Minneapolis to Texas because I knew Minneapolis was going to fold. They were going to roust them out of there, and within 3 or 4 years, there was going to be nothing there. So I said, hey, it's either time to quit or go out and make a bankroll and retire. So that's what I did. I went to World Class first from Minneapolis. I went down to Texas. Then from there, I went back to NWA with Dusty. God bless him. He hired me back and made me some good money. And we did a light heavyweight thing there with Denny Brown, downtown Denny Brown.
I was going to ask you about that.
They were drawing money left and right, so I was making good money. I went with him, and then I finally said, hey, I called Vince, and I said, yeah, I'd like to come in and work for you, blah, blah, blah. A long story short, he said, yeah, come in, let's see what you can do, blah, blah, blah. But the money was great. I mean, for me, I was not a 300-pound drawing card at that time, although I consider my work one of the best in the business. But there's politics involved, and there's egos, and there's money, of course. But I was in it for the business end of it. Hey, What are you going to pay me? What do you want me to do? And that's all I cared about, you know. I
Yeah.
had no ego as far as that goes, because if anybody has an ego, come on, it's a work, it's a business, it's showbiz, you know. I mean, there's a lot of physical punishment. Don't get me wrong; it's very physically punishing and demanding on your lifestyle. I mean, come on, 7 nights a week, and you know, traveling here, there, everywhere. It was very, very hard to have a home life, and I took my wife and kids with me everywhere I went. I moved them from Minneapolis to Portland, Oregon, from Portland, Oregon to Memphis, Texas, from Memphis to Charlotte to, you know, everywhere. I moved my family probably 25 times.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, that's a lot of stress on not only you and the family, but everything. That's incredible to move that many times, and when you got kids and stuff. I mean, it makes it even
Oh
harder.
yeah, it was expensive. Number one, number two, I just couldn't go out there without my family. If I didn't have my family to go home at night, thank God I had that. I've got a loving wife that's been with me 47 years. God bless her. And 2 daughters. And, you know, when my oldest girl got in the 8th grade, and my wife said, hey, whatever we're doing, and when Alexandria gets in the 8th grade, we got to park it wherever we want to park it and make it home. I said, okay. So we did Indianapolis because both our families were from there, and that's where I ended up. But I worked for Vince probably 3 months, paid very well, and I didn't burn the bridge. I just said, hey, Vince, thank you for the run. You know, I'm done. And, you know, he didn't like little guys that much anyway. I mean, he wasn't going to make me a superstar, but I would have had a place in the card. But their travel at that time was brutal. I mean, I'd be in Chicago on a Saturday night, and then Sunday night I'd be in San Francisco, and Monday night I'd be in Phoenix, and it was just ridiculous. The travel was. I said, hey, I'm 35. I was going to give it a couple more years, but hey, I got to roll. So I, you know, made as much as I could, and when I hung my boots up, it was it.
I have read and heard all the stories about the WWF travel at that time. It was pretty
Oh
brutal.
my God.
Let me go back. I want to ask you. Ask you a question about Jim Crockett Promotions real quick. You know, because in '86 you came in and like you said a few minutes ago, you feuded with Denny Brown. You actually won the NWA World Junior Heavyweight title. Jimmy Garvin had already come into the promotion before you, if my timeline is correct.
That is
I know
correct.
you said you came in and Dusty brought you in and you made good money there. Once you were in the promotion, you defeated Denny for the title, but you only held it for a short time. And then, if I remember correctly, so correct me if I'm wrong, you left there and went to WWF. Did you? It felt like you were in and out real quick. Was there a reason behind coming in and out real quick, or was it just because Vince contacted you and offered you good money?
Well, that was the thing. It was a Vince situation there. Bobby Heenan was a good personal friend of mine. Has been from when I was 12 years old. We know each other very well. And Bobby
Okay.
said, if you're going to come, you better come now. And he said, and make your deal with Vince. He said, but if you're going to come, you better get here. I said, okay. And then I went and talked to Dusty, and Dusty said, yeah, that's fine. He says, you know, Vince doesn't like little guys. I said, yeah, I know that, Dusty, but he sure pays well. He says, okay. He says, if you want to go, you're welcome to go. So that's how I did it. Yeah, it wasn't a very long time because I knew my run was winding down. I had enough sense in my mind to think, instead of saying, oh, gee, I can stay here with Dusty for another year and then maybe go to Vince and blah, blah, blah. I knew what the business was doing because, you know, my father-in-law was a promoter. I was part of promotions back in Indianapolis. I knew, and Vern, I was real tight with Greg. I knew what was going on. And Vern and Crockett and them guys, now Crockett gave them a run for their money, or NWA gave them a run for their money there for a little while, but that's only because Hogan and the NWO, you know, that saved their butt for a few years. But then I saw the handwriting on the wall. I said, hey, if you're going to make it, there ain't going to be 30 territories to go to. You can't just pick up and go anywhere and make money now. It's going to be Vince or nobody. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. You're right about that. So that's interesting. I had no clue that the reason you had come in and out of Crockett promotion so quickly in '86 was because the offer was made. I had no idea you and Bobby Heenan were such good friends. Wow, you learn something new every day. That's incredible.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Bobby
Yeah.
called you and told you, hey, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it now. Now, let me ask this question: weren't you the NWA Junior champion at the time when you?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was.
Okay, so when you got the call, you were still a champion. I was trying to do my research because I don't remember. I only used to get the NWA Saturday Night Show on TBS. We didn't get the syndication in my area. We didn't get the NWA Pro, nor did we get Worldwide in my area as a kid. So I don't
Uh-huh.
remember the title change. I don't remember you dropping the belt back to Denny Brown before leaving. Um, were you able to drop it, or did they just kind of do a switch because you left so
Oh no no
quickly?
no no! I dropped it. We had a big match, and it was a great match. We tore the house down. I'm not bragging on
Okay.
myself, but we were the second match on the card. And I believe it was Greenville is where it was because that was a big auditorium or a big place. As I recall, it was a big place. I don't know if it was Greenville or Charlotte, wherever it was. Things are a little foggy. I'm 40 years older now, but it. I did drop it to Denny on a packed out house, and we tore the house down, man. And I get
Okay.
it and got him the belt back to him. And then shortly after that, I left, of course. But yeah, I never. I would never leave a territory up in the air like that. And if you're not a
Yeah.
businessman, they're not going to use you. I mean, you don't want to get
Right.
a bad rep.
Yeah, that's why I was clarifying because I just didn't remember it being on the Saturday night show. So I'm guessing, I have access actually to the old worldwide shows. I have a library of them where I've got access to them from tape trading and things like that. But I'm assuming it's probably on one of those, and I just haven't watched it. But I was thinking, as a kid, I only saw the TBS show, so and I didn't remember seeing. I remember you winning it from him. I just didn't remember
Hmm.
him winning it back. So. Interesting stuff. So when you were talking about your world class days, if we can revisit that for a second, was the original
Sure.
plan when you first came in to world class? Was the original plan for you to only be there? I think you were only there about 2 or 3 months, right?
It was probably more like 6 months. I mean, time involved, but
Okay.
what it was a play. Jimmy knew them very well. It made a lot of money there. So I
Right.
used that connection to call, and I forget who the booker was at that time, but I called him and said, "Hey, I'd like to come in there. Do you have a spot? And can I make some money?" He said, "Yeah, come on down. We'll plug you in, blah, 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 and X amount of dollars per week, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Yeah, I'm coming." I said, "Okay." I went down and, 3 to 6 months, what I did was I didn't move my family at that time. I had already parked them at home in Indianapolis. So I could go out and by myself and, not have expenses of, a family moving them another 2 or 3 times.
Right. Right.
So it saved me a little expenses, and it was just a run to get through and make the money, man. I mean, when you're
Hmm.
by yourself on the road and you're making 3,500, $4,000 a week, it's easy to send money back home because it's just you. You don't have to pay for the rent for the kids, they go to school, for the cars, the whole 9 yards. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
So, I cut it down and just did it myself and did it as long as I possibly could. And wherever I could make money, I would make it. And Vince was the last one. And God bless him. At least he brought me in and paid me decent for when I was there. I didn't get used good because I was a lighter, smaller guy and wasn't that well known, and probably could have stayed there and worked my way into a spot. But I was 35, 36 years old. It was time. I thought I had 3 or 4 more years, but my wife, she's smarter than me. She said, "Hey, Stephen, if you don't come home now, you're going to be crippled. You're going to be disabled."
Body
And
gets
so
beat up. I
she
mean,
was
it's
right. Yeah. Oh my
well,
God,
you
it
had
hurts me
you
to get out
had
of bed in the morning.
and you had been already doing it since I think '77. Is that what you had around that time? When did you get
Actually,
started?
I started wrestling in 1975.
'75.
Before that I refereed. Yeah, 75 for Dick the Bruiser up there in Indianapolis. And I stayed
Gotcha.
around there too long because I didn't know the business at the time. I was an athlete. I tried out with the Redskins. I was a hell of a punter. I was all state in high school for punting, and I went to Indiana State and played football there. But then I got married my second year of college with Cindy, and I quit school because I thought, man, I had to go out and make a living. So long story short, I ended up, my brother-in-law, Mike Snyder, Wilbur Snyder's son, was hauling the ring and refereeing and selling pictures at all the matches for the Indiana talent, right? So I
Right.
said, hey, and he wanted to go on from there. And he said, "You want to take the gig?" I said, "Yeah, I'll take it." So I hauled the ring, refereed, and sold pictures. And to be honest with you, the way the dollar is now, I was probably making more money then than I ever did.
Just hauling a ring and
Just
taking
hauling the
pictures.
ring and refereeing and selling pictures. I probably made more gross per week, considering the value of the dollar then, as opposed to when I really made the big bucks. But not really. But you know what I'm saying. It was
Yeah.
quite a difference. Yeah.
So, Hall, let me ask this then. You're talking about your start as far as hauling the ring and taking pictures and doing all the good stuff and refereeing. Were you formally training at that point to wrestle, or how did the transition come from, like you said, you had started doing all that and first, wrestling, first refereeing and stuff, to then actually wrestling?
Well, the only thing that got me even thinking I could do it, because I was a little guy. I was a 175-pound guy, 185 so quick. And, I was an athlete, and I always had that athletic skill and wanted to do something athletic. Everybody does. Everybody wants to be a pro football player or an athlete. If they can make a living at it, they do it. So I knew I could do that. But the guy that was my brother-in-law, Mike Snyder, my wife's brother, he was a little guy. He was a little than me. And he started wrestling. I said, well, God, if Mike can do it, I can. So I got Bobby Heenan, Rene Goulet, Big John Studd. Who else was there? Blackjack Mulligan was around. Baron Von Raschke was around. And for a year, while I was refereeing the whole ring, I'd set the ring up in an old barn that was 110 degrees and sweated your ass off. And I set it up every day there that I could off the road, and had these guys come over and beat the shit out of me and trade me. And I mean, just, it was your worst nightmare, which it should be. I mean, they say, oh, you'll never make it. You'll never get big, blah, 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 the whole 9 yards. Well, they're right. I probably shouldn't have went through what I went through, but I did, and I made it, and I made a name for myself, and I made a good living at it, and it was fun. The bottom line was, it was a fun way to make a living.
I can imagine. I mean, at your top, and I'm not trying to get into your financials, but at your top, how much were you bringing in a week, if I may ask? Because when you say it's
Yeah,
fun, I can see why you would
yeah.
say that, making a couple grand a week doing something you love, right?
Oh, yeah. I was making, my top was 6 grand, and that was middle money. Guys who were making 10, 12. Guys who were making 2 to 3. I'd work myself up to where I could get the middle money and command it, and they paid it, and it was very lucrative. And my God, the house shows. Think about it. We're in the St. Paul Civic Center. We draw a $350,000 gate plus pay-per-view, or plus closed circuit next door, another probably 50, 60 grand. And they pay off the house. Well, at the time, 10% went to taxes and expenses to the city and state and the athletic commission and all that. Then you split it 3 ways between the talent, the building, and the profit. Well, the promoters got 30% of that gate. So 30% of 400 grand, they had 120 grand they made, and they had 120 grand to pay the guys. So if you had 20 guys on the card, you paid them each 6 grand. That's what you did. You know what I mean? It was all on the live gate. So back then, ticket prices were lower, of course, and nowadays it's astronomical. But it was just a thing where you made a deal with Aunt Vern and the promoters. They knew what they could pay you and what they want to pay you. And of course, they want to pay you the least amount as possible because it's more money in their pocket. So, 6 a week was fine with me at the time. And there was a lot of expenses in that. When you move your family 3 times a year and, you drive 100,000 miles on your car, your expenses rack up there. But if you're smart and can save some money, that's what you do. And that's what I was fortunate enough to do.
What was it's fun. AWA, and I've said this numerous times on this show. We didn't get it where I lived, and until it hit ESPN, and even then, I was a poor kid in New Orleans. I didn't have cable right away. What was it? What was the travel schedule like in AWA? I had always heard it wasn't as bad as like areas like Mid South, but the way you're
Let me
explaining it
tell
to
you.
me,
Oh, it was so much better. I mean, that's why everybody wanted to go there. Hulk Hogan and I were in Memphis together in 79, 80. And he
right?
asked me point blank, he said, hey, what's it like to work for Vern? I said, Hulk, you'll love it. I said, you only work 3 or 4 nights a week. You only work 3 or 4 nights a week, and you're home every night. I mean, you can be a family man. You can have a home life. He said, really? I said, yeah. And then anyway, we hooked up again when I went up there in 82, 83. He was there, and history was made there. That's where Vern was stupid not to use him the way he should have, or he could have kept him from Vince. But Vern was pig-headed and bull-headed and stupid and didn't get it. If he would have got it, he would have kept Hulk and Vince. It might have been a different ballgame,
Yeah.
But
Well,
he didn't want to change his ways. But yeah, it's fun. Yeah, and AWA was great because Vern paid well. he took care of the guys, and he didn't burn you out. You know, you weren't working 7 nights a week and having TV 2 times a week and all that stuff. You know, it was just a
Yeah.
nice place to. You could work out, you could eat, you could travel 3-4 nights a week, and we'd do a loop like. And I was tag team partners with Jesse Ventura for a while. God bless him, old Jesse, good friend of mine. We had a lot of fun together, and you know, telling stories and traveling with Adrian Adonis and him, and God, we just had a good time. And you know, you had fun when you went to work. It wasn't the grind. When I went to work for Vince, I worked 91 days in a row. I said, "This is it. I'm done. I'm out of here." You know, and I mean, not.
Right.
It wasn't 91 days where you went from Anderson, Indiana, to Muncie, 60-mile trip. It was Chicago to San Francisco to L.A. to, you know, I mean, it was flying all day, every day, and I don't even know how those guys worked out and ate, much less wrestled, because the schedule was so. I mean, it just burned you out.
Yeah, I've heard the stories. The guys were like zombies. I mean, it's like they were just kind of just
it was crazy.
zombieing through life.
Yeah, and there's no wonder the drugs were a problem because, hey, you got to do what you had to do. You know, I mean, number one, to bulk up and keep bulked up, even do steroids, which I'm all for that as long as you don't go crazy with it and have a doctor supervise it. But there's that, and then, of course, the recreational drugs. My God, cocaine in the 80s was everywhere. I mean, I think Jesse and I stayed up for 3 days one trip just without even going to sleep, without even closing our eyes. I think we ended up flushing the shit down the toilet because we couldn't go to bed.
Because you were so wired, right?
Oh yeah, we couldn't stop, man. We got to look at all these coke rings, you know, blah blah blah. And oh man, it was crazy.
Clarifying, when you say Jesse, you mean Jesse Ventura?
Yes, Jesse the Body. Yeah,
Jesse the Body. So you're talking about it's interesting. You know, you talk about Hogan before. You know, he was a star in the AWA and then the WWF, and you knew him before then. What was Hogan like? What was Hulk Hogan like before? You know, Hulkamania was running wild through America and the world.
Well, now, I got to see him briefly after he made it really, really big with Vince, and he's the same kind of guy. He came right up and talked to me, "How you doing?" Blah blah blah. Salt of the earth guy. Terry's one of the nicest guys in the world. And I know he was in a cutthroat position there where he didn't have to be that way, but I got no complaints about Terry Bollea. He's a great man, a good friend. I could go over to Tampa today and walk in this shop, we'd hug each other and be like we never even haven't even been apart 30 years. He's just a great guy. We travel a lot together in the Memphis territory, and I saw him up in Minneapolis when I went back up for Vern, and just a great guy, man. And he was in the right place at the right time. My God, he was phenomenal. That body of his and his gimmick was just, I mean, my God, he was just at the right place at the right time.
He was the Hulk. He was Hulk Hogan. I mean, it's hard to explain. I wasn't the biggest WWF fan, but I can wholeheartedly say what they did with him, marketing wise, and everything in the mid '80s was pretty genius. And like you said, you know, he actually. I think Hulkamania may have been born in the AWA, but Vince McMahon definitely made it bigger and definitely cashed in on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you bring Hulk in, he beats the Iron Sheik, who's been your champion for years, or more than a year, and beats him in 10 seconds in the middle of the ring, you know he thinks Hulk's got it, or he wouldn't have done that with him. You know what I mean? When Hulk was...
Sheik had won it from Backlund, but he had only had it for like a month, I believe. But to the point you're making, though, he still came in there and beat him, and it's like, oh my God,
right.
You know,
that's the point. The point is, let's get this guy over because we're gonna make this guy's gonna make us a lot of money.
And it was a WWF title.
So much money.
Yes, he sure did. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
And he made the NWA a lot of. Well, he made the NWA a lot of money too when him and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash went down there. That NWO gimmick was fantastic, and that was what kept the NWA in competition with Vince. And then I guess Russo or one of the bookers, Russo or what's the other guy's name? Not Russo.
A lot of people put it on.
Eric something.
A lot of people put it on
Bischoff.
On
Bischoff. Yeah, Bischoff. They screwed it up with the booking and the way they did it. They could have been a direct competitor to the WWE, and if they would have done things a little differently. And they didn't. They were stupid. They went with stupid stuff, and then they got buried too, and then it was all Vince.
Well, they competed for a little while, but a combination of bad booking and the Time Warner AOL merger and a corporation trying to oversee a wrestling organization.
All of that,
Didn't work too well, and then of course the WWF won the quote unquote war, and then as we had it, WCW was no more. But you know, you're right. For a little while, they competed and they lit it on fire, and Hogan was a big part of the NWO. I just was curious, you know, since you knew him, interesting stuff. Like since you knew him, and he was just a down to earth guy, long before Hulkamania ran wild. That's a good story.
Yeah, yeah, he's a good man, and I'm really sad that he divorced his first wife, Linda, which I understand both sides, Linda's and his, but they were such a good couple together. I'm sorry that they got divorced, and I understand what happened, you know, with the kid, Nikki, and having the car accident, killing the kid, and everything that happened in his life. I can understand that, but they were such a, you know, I thought they were a very close couple because I'm close to my wife. You know, I've been with her, and you know, if she left me, I'd be lost. So I know Hulk had went through some time there where he was without Linda, and there's change over now. I guess he's got a real good girl he's going with. So, you know, that's critical too, your home life, you know?
Yeah, I can only imagine too. It must have been really hard for him to, you know, on the road as much as he was too. I can't even imagine trying to, you know, maintain a household, being on the road that much. I mean, you dealt with it with your wife. I can't. I have. It's just got to be hard on all that travel and going around the whole
It is
country. And
hard.
like you
It
said,
definitely is
like
hard.
like you said,
Yeah,
it wasn't just short trips too. It was long trips. 91 days in a row
right.
on the road is
Oh
brutal.
God, yeah, yeah, it is. It's very brutal, and most normal people wouldn't do that. They wouldn't even choose to do that at all. You know, I mean, they really have no concept or idea of what we were doing and how we got there and how we did it. And nowadays, you know, they script the matches. They tell the guys, well, leapfrog this guy and then slam him and then drop kick him and then do this and this and this and this. Shit, man, we did it on the ring. We buzzed each other, you know, and I think they were better matches and better quality and better high spots and everything because it doesn't look like a rehearsed dance, you know. Some of the times I watch it nowadays and I say, geez, come on, man, you know.
How
But
much
that's
how
the
much
way
do
of the
you
world.
watch? How much do you watch nowadays,
Uh,
if
I,
any?
to be honest with you, I don't watch any of it unless if it's on. When I flip to it, I watch it for a little bit. But you know, there's just so much. You know, the explosions and the music and the lights and the action and the soap opera, and it just is way beyond whatever it needs to be. You know what I mean? They don't need to do that to make money. Their money now is in TV revenues. They don't care about the live gate. They don't have to care about the live gate because that doesn't matter. The TV advertising is where the money is, and they figured that out back in the mid to late 90s. And ever since, that's why Vince is a multi-billionaire because TV revenue makes a lot of money.
What do you, let me ask this question. What do you think about I don't know if you know this, but WWE just signed a deal with Fox where for 4 years they're going to get paid $1 billion. Can you, when you hear that type of money being thrown around for, you know, just a TV product for 4 years, so 250 million a year, what do you think about that?
Well, I think about the guys in Hollywood that are in a TV series that runs 13 weeks a year and they get paid 300 grand a week. I'm
Yeah,
thinking the guys that are top, if they're smart, they're going to get their 300 or 400 grand a week, and if they don't, they're stupid.
it's a
That's
good
what I'm
point.
thinking. That's big money, you
That's
know,
big
and
money,
that's
and
up
it
to the
makes you
guys
wonder
or
why
their agents.
Well, it makes you wonder too. Those guys, you know, like you said, you didn't have any health insurance. You know, you're paying, you're coming out of pocket for things like that, and during your time, even though you're making good money, you know, these guys still they're basically they're still they might be under contract, but they're still technically independent contractors without health insurance and things like that. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I hope eventually that you know these guys can at least get that because that's kind of brutal, man. The company's making that much money, bringing in that much, and the TV, you know, a
Oh
billion
God.
dollars over four
And you
years.
know, and you know, speaking of that, Jesse Ventura wanted to unionize the wrestlers, and he was so smart about doing it and talked to everybody about it, but nobody wanted to do it because the ego's involved. Well, I'm making my 10 grand a week. I don't want to rock the boat, you know.
Have
But if we
you?
would all stuck together, we could have started a union and gotten some benefits and gotten a guaranteed salary and a contract, you know. But they never did it. Jesse, you know, he joined the Screen Actors Guild because there's Hollywood stuff, and we wanted to do something like that with the wrestling business. And if we would have and all got together, but we were traveling so much and working every night that you know it just kind of petered out because nobody wanted to uh, not have their paycheck for a couple of months if we went on strike, whatever the case may be, to make the point. And it's a shame because Vince is taking advantage of a lot of people. I don't care who you are with him working now. If you're on top, I'm sure you're making good money. But hey, you could probably make three times that.
Have you ever heard the story that Jesse told that as far as the union deal goes, apparently you guys were all getting together to do that, and Jesse was on a podcast, and I don't know which one it was. I can't remember, but I know I heard it years back, and he had claimed that Hulk Hogan is the one who went to Vince and told the guys that this was, all everybody was trying to get this together, and he claims Hogan stooged him out, and Vince some kind of way put a stop to it. I don't have all the facts together right and the details of it, but Jesse claimed that back when the time period that you're talking about. Had you ever heard that story?
Yes,
Okay.
I have heard that, and to be honest with you, that's what the problem was. Now, I don't know if Hulk did that. I have no. Jesse told me he did that, and I believe Jesse because he's my friend and he's a Navy SEAL and he's a sweetheart, and so is Hulk though. So the bottom line is, maybe he did that, maybe he didn't. I have no idea because I don't know what the truth is. But somebody did something like that to squash it because Jesse was making some inroads and guys were thinking about it. And when Vince found out about it, of course, he put all the squash to it all he could because it was going to cost him a big money.
Right, right. It was going to cost him big dollars. I get that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Mr. Regal, I didn't want to keep you too long. I wanted to bring you on the show and record with you and get some stories from kind of talk to you about like you said when you and Jimmy Garvin defeated the Road Warriors and a little bit and touch on your WCW time or world class time. And of course your NWA time, but I appreciate you joining me. Can you tell the people out there listening where they can find you at on Twitter?
Absolutely. They can find me on Twitter at Steve Regal 4. And my email is steveregal825@gmail.com.
All right. Have you been getting since you, I know you did Jim Cornette's podcast recently. Have you been getting more fans reaching out to you and telling you hello and stuff?
Let me be honest. Yeah, straight honest with you, Mike. I've been sitting here in Pompano Beach, Florida for the last 20 years, retired. Now, I had a job here, of course. I worked
Right.
up until last year. I retired a year ago. But since I went on Jimmy's podcast, there has been people write. I've got a stack of 15 to 20 fan letters. People want autographs and send a picture with it just since Jimmy's podcast. I've gotten phone calls, Gmails, podcast offers, personal appearance offers. In fact, I went up to New Jersey in Monroe there a couple weeks ago or a month ago for a personal appearance at a convention and, never had any idea those were going on. And didn't really care because I'm not destitute. I'm not, I don't need the money, but I do love talking about my business. And let's face it, everybody likes to make a few extra bucks. So I'm out there. If they want to bring me somewhere and talk to me or talk about the business, I love talking about it. And I'm one of the few ones that is back from the 70s, 80s, 90s and on that is still alive and knew all these guys,
Yeah.
There's very few guys that are out there alive that I ran with.
Yeah, it's I say it all the time. I grew up watching the territories, and unfortunately the guys that I grew up watching who were in their 20s, 30s, and even 40s, they're unfortunately getting older and passing on. And it's a
yeah. And Kurt
it's
Hennig,
part of
God
life,
bless him.
unfortunately.
Roddy Piper, Dusty Rhodes. I mean, come on, man. Well, Dusty made it 64. I mean, if any wrestler makes it to 60, that's good because it's a tough life, man. And the recreational drugs were rampant, and they still are. I mean, Vince had his steroid scandal there for a while, but he kind of shut that down. I don't know how they did that, but they did.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to test everybody and kick everybody out. And if they didn't like it, they were kicked out for drugs and used it as a weapon. And realistically, come on, everybody did it. And, it was a known fact. But, it's just it's amazing that so many guys have died so young,
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We went through a period a couple years ago. I never forget when Dusty passed and Roddy passed, and it just seemed like it was like Buddy Landell passed. I mean, it was like everybody was passing away in this short period of time. And
Mm-hmm.
I understand. I mean, it's life. People are gonna die. I mean, it's
Of course.
we all expire at some point. But you're right. It's a hard business, and like you said, the recreational drug use didn't help it, but also being on the road all the time and bumping and getting injured.
Oh,
and,
God, yeah.
Like you said, I mean, yeah, I'm sure you worked through numerous injuries throughout your career. All that, along with the drug use, and for guys,
exactly.
it takes its toll on them.
It sure does. And I was smart that my wife was smart. I was smart because I was going to go ahead and rock it out another 3 to 5 years. She said, "Get your ass home," and I'm glad she did because I'm serious. I've got, oh my God, my hips, my shoulders, my back. I can't tell you how many injuries I have that now I really are feeling them. And thank God I'm still able to walk and do most things. But man, it takes its toll. If you don't have some money saved away, or there was no 401k with the wrestling business or pension plan,
Right.
and that's a shame because it's a localized business. And there's really, even when I was in it full time, there was only probably 1,500 guys in the United States of America that were making their living off pro wrestling. The rest of them might have been wrestling, but they weren't making a living off of it. And
Right.
it was sad because it was a niche sport, and nobody ever took it by the reins and said, "Hey, come work with us. We got a pension. We'll do this. We'll do that. We'll give you a percentage of the TV. Blah blah blah. Whatever."
Right.
All they wanted was to take advantage of your body and your work. And hey, yeah, you can go out there and shit. You and Jimmy can draw us big money with Road Warriors. Well, great. Just pay me. But it should have been, it should have been a contract deal where, hey, you're going to work for me for this year, and we'll talk about your raise next year when the contract time comes up, just like everybody else in the sports business or in the entertainment business.
Yeah, I
But it
hear
won't be
that.
that way. It won't ever be that way. Yeah.
Well, hopefully one day it'll change. But Mr. Regal, again, I want to thank you for joining me and spending a little time with me, almost 45 minutes talking about some old school wrestling and your career. We'll have to do it again sometime and talk about more of your time in this great business and things I love about it as far as classic wrestling goes. So I appreciate your time. Thank you again, and tell the people again what your email address is.
My email is Steve Regal, SteveRegal 825 at gmail.com. That's Steve Regal 825 at gmail.com.
And then
And
it's at
anybody can get a hold
Steve
of me.
Regal.
I'm not hiding.
He's not
At
hiding, and
Steve
it's at
Regal,
Steve Regal 4 on Twitter. And
at
you
Steve Regal
are
4 on Twitter. Yeah.
and you are open to doing like I guess these appearances that they're doing now with these WrestleCon, well, not just
Absolutely. Yeah.
WrestleCon, but things
Yeah.
like that, right? Good deal.
Pay the
Well,
trans and give me a couple $100 on there. Because I love talking about the business.
yeah. Well, hopefully, more people start reaching out to you. I know you said you've done one, and yeah, it would be good to see you out there doing your thing. Those things are so popular. I mean, I think about the ones I've only been to a few on WrestleMania weekend, but yeah, definitely, man, that would be great for you to get out
Yeah.
there and see the fans again and tell them hello.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I got some good stories too. All right, Mike. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.